The gym was alive with noise, gloves slapping against pads, shoes squeaking on the mats, laughter echoing off the concrete walls. Bright lights hung overhead, casting long reflections on the polished floor. This was Victor's world. As a famous Faixa-preta champion, he thrived on attention, on the way people leaned in when he spoke and lifted their phones when he moved. Tonight was no different. A small crowd had gathered, cameras already recording, hungry for something exciting. Victor wiped sweat from his brow and laughed loudly. "You know what would be fun," he said, his voice cutting through the room. His eyes drifted toward the far corner, where a man in a faded uniform quietly pushed a mop across the floor. Samuel. He worked here every night, long after the champions and influencers had gone home. Most people barely noticed him. To them, he was just part of the background, the sound of water sloshing in a bucket, the soft scrape of a mop. But Victor noticed him now and pointed openly. "That guy. Let him fight me. Just one round. For fun." A wave of laughter rolled through the gym. Some people glanced at Samuel with curiosity, others with pity. A few pulled out their phones, sensing a viral moment. Samuel stopped mopping. His hands tightened around the handle as heat rushed to his face. He had learned to stay quiet, to disappear into his work. Confrontation had never ended well for him. "Come on," Victor continued, grinning. "You're strong, right? Don't be shy." Samuel slowly raised his eyes. He saw the smirks, the expectation, the way the room had already decided the outcome. His chest felt heavy, not with fear, but with old memories pressing forward. A time when he had worn a clean GI. A time when he had been respected. A time before life demanded sacrifices that left no room for dreams. He thought of his mother, of hospital hallways and unpaid bills. He thought of the promise he had made to himself. To walk away from violence, to choose dignity even when the world offered none. The room waited. Samuel took a deep breath and leaned the mop against the wall. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. He simply stepped forward, each footfall steady and deliberate. The laughter began to fade. For the first time that night, Victor's grin hesitated. Something in Samuel's calm presence shifted the air, as if everyone suddenly realized this was no joke at all. The moment Samuel stepped onto the mat, the gym seemed to shrink. The laughter, the whispers, even the hum of the lights faded into a distant blur. He could feel the texture of the mat beneath his bare feet, firm, familiar. For a split second, he was no longer a janitor standing under curious stares. He was someone he had been before life rewrote his path. Victor bounced lightly on his toes, confidence radiating from every movement. This was his stage. He flashed a grin at the cameras, soaking in the attention. "Relax," he said casually, rolling his shoulders. "I won't hurt you." Samuel didn't respond. His eyes moved slowly around the room, taking in the walls lined with faded photos of champions and trophies locked behind glass. He remembered standing in places like this years ago, younger and full of belief. Back then, he trained every day, waking before sunrise, dreaming of competition and honor. His coach used to tell him that true strength wasn't about aggression, it was about control. Those lessons had stayed with him, even when everything else was stripped away. Life hadn't asked for permission before changing. His mother's illness came suddenly, swallowing savings and time. Training turned into late-night shifts. The GI was folded and placed in a drawer, then forgotten. He told himself it was temporary, but days became years. Responsibility replaced ambition, and survival replaced dreams. Victor began to circle him, studying Samuel like a puzzle he hadn't expected. "You sure you've never done this before?" he joked, though his voice carried a trace of uncertainty now. Samuel finally met his eyes. There was no challenge there. No anger. Just a quiet awareness. He bowed, not to Victor's reputation, not to the cameras, but to the mat itself. A sign of respect. A reminder of discipline. The bell rang. Victor attacked first, fast and sharp, each movement fueled by ego and excitement. Samuel reacted without thinking, his body remembering what his mind had tried to forget. He stepped aside, blocking with ease, conserving energy. The crowd leaned closer. Whispers replaced laughter. With every exchange, it became clearer that Samuel wasn't fighting to prove anything. He moved with patience, choosing defense over domination, calm over chaos. Inside, a profound realization settled in his chest. He hadn't lost himself after all. He had only set a part of his life aside. And now, standing on the mat again, Samuel understood something deeply. Sometimes stepping back isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the quiet strength that prepares you for the moment you must step forward once more. The rhythm of the match changed. What began as entertainment had become something heavier, something real. Victor's breathing grew louder, sharper, each exhale edged with frustration. The confidence that once flowed through his movements now stumbled, replaced by urgency. He attacked harder, faster, trying to reclaim control in front of the watching crowd. Samuel felt it immediately, the shift in energy. Victor wasn't fighting with joy anymore. He was fighting to protect his pride. Victor lunged forward with a powerful combination, putting everything behind it. For a brief moment, the gym held its breath. Then Victor's foot slipped against the mat, just enough to break his balance. It was a small mistake, one that only trained eyes would notice. Samuel noticed. Without aggression, without hesitation, he moved. Years of discipline guided his body as if time itself had slowed. He redirected Victor's force, turned his momentum against him, and brought him down to the mat with clean precision. The impact echoed through the gym. Silence followed. Victor lay there, pinned, staring up at the ceiling lights. Samuel held him firmly, effortlessly. Everyone could see it now, this was no accident. Samuel had complete control. Phones trembled in frozen hands. No one spoke. Samuel felt Victor tense beneath him, waiting for the inevitable finish. He knew the rules. He knew what the crowd expected. He also knew what it would mean to end it, to humiliate a man who had already exposed his own arrogance. A memory surfaced. His mother's voice, tired but gentle, telling him that dignity was the only thing no one could take unless you gave it away. Samuel loosened his grip. The room gasped. He released Victor completely and stepped back, offering his hand. Confusion washed over Victor's face as he sat up, eyes wide, heart pounding. He looked at Samuel as if seeing him for the first time. "Why?" Victor asked quietly, his voice stripped of bravado. "You had me. Why didn't you finish it?" Samuel helped him to his feet, his grip steady and respectful. "Because this was never about winning," he said softly. "And fighting for fun stops being fun when someone's dignity is on the line." The words landed harder than any strike. Victor swallowed, his gaze dropping to the mat. Around them, the crowd remained silent, not out of shock now, but out of understanding. They hadn't just witnessed a reversal of power. They had witnessed restraint, mercy, and a strength deeper than dominance. In that moment, something inside Victor cracked open. And something inside everyone watching shifted with it. The fight was over, but the lesson had just begun. The gym felt different after the match ended, quieter, heavier, as if the walls themselves were listening. Victor stood still at the center of the mat, shoulders slumped, chest rising and falling as he tried to steady his breath. The cameras were still on him, but for the first time, he didn't care about the audience. His eyes were fixed on Samuel. "I thought strength meant control," Victor said at last, his voice low and unsteady. "I thought it meant being the best, no matter what." He paused, swallowing hard. "I was wrong." No one laughed. No one interrupted. The champion everyone admired was no longer performing. He was confessing. Victor took a step forward and bowed deeply. Not the quick, careless nod he used for show, but a full bow, one of humility. Gasps rippled through the room. "I disrespected you," he said, looking up with eyes that glistened under the lights. "I treated you like a joke. I'm sorry." Samuel felt the weight of the moment settle in his chest. He had faced insults before, moments where silence was his only shield. This apology, spoken publicly and without excuse, felt unfamiliar. He nodded once. "We all forget who we are sometimes," he replied gently. "What matters is whether we're willing to remember." Victor straightened, wiping his face with the back of his glove. He looked around the gym, the students, the trophies, the posters celebrating victory, and for the first time, he saw them differently. "This place is supposed to teach discipline," he said. "Respect. And I failed that tonight." He turned back to Samuel. "You didn't just beat me," Victor continued. "You taught me something." After a brief pause, he added, "I want you here, not as a joke, not as a challenge. As a coach. As someone this gym can learn from." A murmur of surprise filled the room. Samuel hesitated. Offers had been made to him before, empty ones, fueled by guilt or pity. But this felt different. Victor wasn't offering charity. He was offering recognition. Samuel looked around at the watching faces, then back at Victor. "If I stay," he said slowly, "it's to teach respect first. Fighting comes second." Victor nodded without hesitation. "Then that's exactly what we'll teach." Applause finally broke the silence, not wild or loud, but steady and sincere. In choosing humility over pride, Victor had changed the atmosphere of the room. And in accepting with grace, Samuel had shown that compassion doesn't just heal the wounded, it transforms everyone around it. Weeks passed, but the moment on the mat never faded. The gym no longer felt like a place fueled by ego and spectacle. It had become quieter in a meaningful way, focused, respectful. Where laughter once carried mockery, it now carried encouragement. Where pride once dominated, humility had taken root. Samuel arrived early each evening, not with a mop, but with a worn gym bag slung over his shoulder. He stood on the mat as a coach, his posture calm, his voice steady. The students listened closely, not because he demanded attention, but because his presence commanded it naturally. He taught them how to stand, how to breathe, how to fall without fear. But more than that, he taught them how to treat one another. "Control your strength," he would say. "Power without respect is just noise." Children stayed after class, asking questions. Parents watched from the sidelines, noticing how their kids spoke differently, moved differently. Samuel made time for everyone, remembering names, encouraging the shy, guiding the aggressive toward patience. Teaching didn't feel like reclaiming a lost dream, it felt like discovering a new one. Victor trained alongside his students now, no longer above them. He pushed himself harder than ever, but with a changed purpose. He corrected mistakes gently, praised effort loudly, and listened more than he spoke. One evening, after the gym had emptied, he turned to Samuel. "You know," Victor said quietly, "that night could have destroyed me. Online, in front of everyone." He paused. "But you chose something better." Samuel smiled faintly. "I chose peace," he replied. "It lasts longer." Word of the moment spread, not as a scandal, but as a story of dignity. People didn't share it to laugh. They shared it to learn. The video ended not with a knockout, but with an outstretched hand, and that image stayed with those who watched. Late one night, Samuel stood alone on the mat, the lights dimmed, the room silent. He thought of his mother, of the sacrifices that led him here. For the first time in years, his heart felt light. Life hadn't been easy. But it had shaped him into someone who could change others without hurting them. As he turned off the lights, Samuel understood the truth behind real strength. It's not measured by how many you defeat, but by how many you uplift. And in that gym, on an ordinary night, kindness had become the most powerful lesson of all.